be back before you know I'm gone. Come back to sleep. This meeting's at dawn. Well, I'm going back to sleep. Best of wives and best of women. Marco, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in to Living Single Diaries, a Marco Polo entry. My name is Isis, and today, in case the title of the video did not spoil it, we are doing our second ever Q2 book tag. So if you missed Q1 book tag, go back, watch it. Please go back, watch it. It's going to be much more entertaining than this one. However, I told myself that every quarter I do a book tag check-in where we review the books that I successfully read throughout the quarter. Spoiler alert. This quarter was rough. Okay, this quarter was rough. Side note, have you guys noticed the new thumbnail? I don't even know what the new thumbnail looks like. I just know it's a new thumbnail. So we are officially in a new chapter in my Living Single Diaries. Chapter 2 or Volume 2. We are in full birthday celebration mode. It is on and it is popping. And I thought with the change of chapters, I could go with a change of thumbnail. The old Marco Polo thumbnail I made, it's cool. But I think I'm a little sick of it and it doesn't really fit the aesthetic of my channel. I don't think it does. So I'm switching it up. I don't know what that means. I'll insert in the text down here whether I like it or not, or whether we're still brainstorming ideas, but we're gonna see. But back on topic, we're here today for Q2 quarterly book tag. Let's jump right into it. It's gonna be a short one. It won't take long. I just need a moment of your time. So in the second quarter of 2024, I read, drumroll please, 2 books. No, really, I only got through 2 books last quarter. I have a goal, reminder, I have a goal to read 24 books this year, which if you break that up evenly, that is 6 books a quarter, that is 2 books a month. Last month, I read 6 books. Congratulations, me. Then Q2, I read 2. But you know what? Life happens. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. And quite frankly, Q3 is off to a strong start. My TBR is fat. And I'm like, how am I even going to get through all of these books in the next 3 months? So I really feel like I'm going to exceed 6 books this quarter. So stay tuned for a Q3 book tag. But for now, we're talking about Q2. So let's talk about the books that I read. And also, let's talk about the books that I didn't finish. Because we got some DNFs this month. Because I just couldn't finish them. So the first book I read this quarter was Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. And I rated this book 4 stars. This surprised me. I am very picky with my romance. I'm not a romance reader. The tropes that usually go on in romance agitate me. I hate miscommunication, but like other tropes kind of get at me. And also like the dialogue in romances, it just don't be hitting for me. And I have tried black romances at that. And thus far, the only like romance that has appealed to me is Tia Williams. Tia Williams can do no harm. She is a goddess amongst plebes, okay? But Kennedy Ryan, she is creeping her way up. I was pleasantly surprised with her romance. I was pleasantly surprised with her method of storytelling. I was pleasantly surprised with her prose. I just really enjoyed the book. I read this book for book club. And let's read the synopsis. Their love was supposed to last forever, but when life delivered blow after devastating blow, Yasmin and Josiah Wave found that love alone couldn't solve or save everything. It couldn't save their marriage. Yasmin wasn't prepared for how their life fell apart, but she's finally starting to find joy again. She and Josiah have found a new rhythm, co-parenting their 2 kids and running a thriving business together. Yet like magnets, they are always drawn back to each other. And now they are beginning to wonder if they're truly ready to let go of everything they once had. Soon, one stolen kiss leads to another, and then it's more. It's hot, it's illicit, it's good, until old wounds reopen. Is it too late for them to find forever, or could it be even better the second time around? If you ain't read it, ready. If you ain't ready, go read it. What really pleased me about this romance, first and foremost, she writes grief really well. And I appreciate that. Second, the romance wasn't just about Josiah and Yasmin. It was about their children. It was about their friends. It was about their surrounding family members. It was about their surrounding community. There was a story going on around these two main characters. Oftentimes I read romances and it's like two people in the whole world. And on occasion that works, but most times it don't. At least not for me. Like I said, I'll be nitpicky with romances. But that right there really pleased me. And it wasn't until reading this book where it clicked. That's something that I look for in my romances. Is there a plot surrounding the main characters, or is it just about the main characters? Because if it's just about the main characters, likely I'm not going to enjoy it. So that is my non-spoiler review on Before I Let Go. It was a great read. It was the best read of the quarter. And we can talk about the second book. The second book I read this quarter was Piranesi by Susanna Clark. And I rated this 3 stars. This book was a slog to get through. I started this book back in November of last year. And I got maybe about a quarter in. And then I picked it back up this past quarter. And I'm like, okay, let's push through this book. Let's finish it. I already knew that it's like a slow burn book from the jump. And so I'm like, let me just get to the end. Because this book is just so wildly regarded. And it's put up on a pedestal. And the Goodreads is a 4.23. And it's just this amazing story with this wonderful twist. But not a twist. And its perception on life is so... Clearly, I didn't like it. Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Piranesi's house is no ordinary building. Its rooms are infinite. Its corridors are endless. Its walls are lined with thousands upon thousands of statues. Each one is different from the other. Within the labyrinth of halls, an ocean is imprisoned. Waves thunder up the staircases. Rooms are flooded in an instant. But Piranesi is not afraid. He understands the tides as he understands the pattern of the labyrinth himself. He lives to explore the house. There is one other person in the house, a man called the Other, who visits Piranesi twice a week and asks for help with research into a great secret knowledge. But as Piranesi explores, evidence emerges of another person and a terrible truth begins to unravel, revealing a world beyond Piranesi has always known. I can't believe I finished this book. And quite frankly, I was about 75% through, and I'm like, at this point, I just need to finish so that I can say that I finished. I need to finish so that I can have some type of closure. I saw the story coming a mile away. And some people would argue, because I got on BookTube and I was looking at people's reviews, spoiler reviews about the book, and I'm just really trying to figure out what about it they loved. Like, what did I miss? And some would argue that you're meant to see the twist coming. It's not like it's an unseeable twist. It's just how the story is told, and it's so revolutionary, and I don't think it is. It's a nice story. It was written well. I gave it 3 stars because it's a written well story. But I think it's very average. Like, you know what it seems like? It seems like that book that they make you read in 8th grade and then you have to like write a paper on it, and you know, it's a literary classic. I'm pretty sure if you look it up, someone would be as bold to say that Piranesi by Susanna Clark is a modern literary classic. I bet they would. And then they'd make you read it in 8th grade and you have to write some paper on it about what you thought the ending interpreted. And I'm not reading 8th grade essay assignments. So, I don't know. I just couldn't buy into the hype. And that kind of started the beginning of the end of this low volume quarter as far as how many books I finished. The next book I picked up was The Gatekeeper's Staff. Now we're getting into the DNFs. So I only finished 2 books. These next 2 books that I did not finish do not have ratings because I didn't finish them. But I'm going to tell you about them. So the first did not finish is The Gatekeeper's Staff, T.J. Young and the Orishas Part 1 by Anton Benedict. I think I'm saying his last name wrong, but it's Antoine, the Avatar guy on YouTube. If you don't know who he is, love him. I've been following him for years, and he kind of cute. I digress. But he talks about like Avatar content, and he talks about like other content. Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I've been following him since like 2014, like long time. When was this book published? This book was published in Goodreads isn't giving me a year, 2021, and I just know him from Avatar stuff. And I was watching his coverage of the live action, which that was disappointing, but I was watching his coverage of it, and someone mentioned his book, and then he mentioned his book, and then I was all like, book? You wrote a book? And I googled it, and I'm like, you wrote a book about a little black boy in the Orishas? I want to read it. I love fantasy. We just talked about how I'm not the biggest romance fan. Well, what type of fan are you? I'm a big fantasy fan. About the Orishas and a little boy, and also just to read from like a boy's perspective. That doesn't happen often. It's like it's very common for like it to be a young female protagonist. So I was really looking forward to this. Okay, let's read the summary. Option for a motion picture adaptation. Antoine, not you out here doing big things. I am really proud of him, and I want to read this book. Now, I got this book on audiobook. We're going to get back to it. Hold on. 14-year-old TJ grew up normal in a secret community of gifted diviners in the heart of modern-day Los Angeles. His powerful sister was ordained to lead his people into a new age of prosperity, but her mysterious death in Nigeria threatens to destroy the very foundations of TJ's world. Desperate to pick up where his sister left off and to uncover the secrets left behind by her questionable death, TJ commits himself to unlocking the magical heritage that has always eluded him. So he enrolls in Kemp's Osula Remedial Magic School for the divinely less than talented in the this is hilarious, in the humid swamps of New Orleans. But little does he know, TJ is destined to cross paths with powerful spirits of old, thought lost to the Orishas. Delve into this young adult fantasy based on the mythology of the West African Orishas, where TJ will encounter unlikely allies, tough as gator hide instructors, and the ancient secrets of the Orishas. I just cut all of that, but I was struggling to read that. I'm really excited to read this book. And I got this book on audiobook. Some books I get in print and some books I get in audiobook. I'd say about 70% audiobook, 30% paperback or hardback. And I don't really do Kindles or any type of e-reader. Why is the narrator for this story a woman? Antoine, what decision was that? And it's just, it throws me out of the immersion. I am only 2 chapters into this story, and I can't find myself connecting to the story because it's this woman doing a very bad impression of a teenage boy. It's just bad. It's just bad. And women voice act for men all the time, but this isn't a good one. And on top of that, like, while I'm interested in a fantasy system based in the Orishas, I'm reading a fantasy system based in the Orishas now. And guess what? It's a young woman as a protagonist. She's 19, okay? This, like you guys can see my phone, the Gatekeeper's Staff is a protagonist of a young male, and it's just throwing me off. So I'm probably going to end up having to get the print version of his book and read it myself with my own internal monologue. But I just couldn't immerse myself in it. And then the other book I was trying to read this quarter, let me wrap this up because this is going a little bit too long, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, a commandery professor journeys to a small town in the far north to study fair folklore and discovers dark fae magic, friendship, and love in the start of a heartwarming and enchanting new fantasy series. Cambridge professor Emily Wilde is good at many things. She is the foremost expert on the study of fairies. She is a genius scholar and meticulous researcher who is always writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. But Emily Wilde is not good at people. She could never make small talk at a party or even get invited to one. She prefers the company of her books, her dog, and fair folk. The description goes on. It's basically about her writing an encyclopedia about fairies. It sounds very, very interesting. Like, on principle, this sounds like a real nice, fluffy book that is inconsequential that I could enjoy. But, like, I just couldn't tap into the energy of it. And at this point, I have only read 2 books in the quarter. My life is busy in all these different realms, and reading is not really a priority this quarter. And so I just stopped reading it. I have a higher desire to read The Gatekeeper's Staff more than I have a higher desire to read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. But I do still want to read both of them. I just don't know when. And my TBR for this quarter is packed. I went from having no books I was interested in to having like a ton of books I'm interested in. And like I'm rereading a couple of books for my birthday trip because I want to. So those are 2 additional books on my TBR list. And we're going to talk about it in the Q3 book tag. That's not important right now. But I don't know. The Gatekeeper's Staff, that's going to be a minute because I'm going to have to find the money to buy his book a second time in print because I'm not jiving with that audiobook. And Emily Wilde and her fairies, I don't know. It sounds like a good book to read in the fall time. Future Isis here. We're in different clothes. We have different hair. Do we like the hair? We love it, right? Thank you. Interjecting on past me for a moment here because I realized I completely left a book off of my list this quarter. Is it a book I read? No. I told you, only read 2 books last quarter. It's actually a DNF. It is the last DNF of the quarter. And I went back and forth on whether I wanted to record this insert and put it in because I kind of missed it. And I'm like, oh, that'll be weird. You're dropping in with different hair and a different outfit. And it's been like a week and a half since I initially recorded it in the first place. But no, okay? Because we need to get the full picture here. And I really need you guys to understand. I want you guys to understand how rough of a reading quarter it was for me last quarter. Like, it just wasn't hitting. The last book of the quarter was Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women, A Movement Forgot by Mickey Kendall. This was a book club book. I actually voted for this book to win in our book club, and this was the book club book for June. So this is like right as the quarter is ending on the back end of what truly was a rough quarter. I have never DNF'd so many books in such a short span of time before. Like, I will read a book. Shoot, I pushed through Paranesi to my own demise. I will torture myself and read a book. So for me to have so many DNFs, like, it kind of is a big deal. It's not that I wasn't reading. I was trying to read. It's just that everything I picked up, I just wasn't really jiving with. So let's talk about why Hood Feminism ended up being a DNF. It is a nonfiction book, and let me read the synopsis for it. Today's feminist movement has a glaring blind spot, and paradoxically, it's women. Mainstream feminists rarely talk about meeting basic needs as a feminist issue, argues Mickey Kendall. But food insecurity, access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, a living wage, and medical care are all feminist issues. All too often, however, the focus is not on the basic survival of many, but on increasing privilege for the few. That feminists refuse to prioritize these issues has only exacerbated the age-old problems of both indoctrinated discord and women who rebuff at carrying the title. Moreover, prominent white feminists broadly suffer at their own mytopia with regard to how things like race, class, sexual orientation, and ability intersect with gender. How can we stand in solidarity as a movement, Kendall asks, when there is a distinct likelihood that some women are oppressing others? Sounds like a good read, okay? It really does. It really, really does. In general, I do like nonfiction books. In fact, last year, about half of the books that I read were nonfiction. I was in my nonfiction bag last year. So this is the first nonfiction book I've picked up this year. I think I've been like a bit retaliatory because I was so nonfiction heavy last year. So I'm like, okay, cool. This will be the first nonfiction book of the year. I'm excited to read it, but I never made it past like chapter 4. And like I barely started chapter 4. Like I never made it past chapter 3. How about that? And I just couldn't bring myself to focus and finish the book. And not to mention, it's kind of heavy. Like she getting in it. She is in her she in her bag, okay? And she's spitting fat. And with everything that's going on in real life, in real time, you know, reading that book, it became homework almost. And now that I'm able to look back upon the experience and also compare this nonfiction book to other nonfiction books that I have read in the past, every other nonfiction book I have read in the past has still told itself in narrative form. So it's still nonfiction, but it has a narrative through line. You can make your point while telling a story. This book is essentially a collection of essays. And I knew this going in, but like I guess I didn't really think of how that would impact my reading experience. I feel like I'm like in graduate school reading something for a thesis, and ultimately I think that's why I couldn't get through the book. So note to self, if you're gonna read nonfiction books, make sure that they're in narrative format, because clearly that's what you like. I will get back to the book eventually. I own it. I bought it. I have the hard copy. So whenever I feel like it, I can open it up and read a chapter. And it's not something I didn't read because I'm not interested. I'm highly interested. I can learn something from this book. I can broaden my own perspective around how I feel and how I fit in a feminist movement. I agree with a lot of what she has to say. So I'll get around to it. But for the sake of the Q2 book tag, it is my last DNF of the quarter. Okay, that's all I needed. Back to you, Isis. With that, we bring the Q2 book tag to a close. Thanks for joining me, and stay tuned for Q3. Q3 is gonna be lit. Q3 is gonna be fun. I've already finished a book, and I'm halfway through another book, and I have like 3-4 books in the queue. So we zooming through. I'm back on my reading queue.